welcome to Pluribus Unum's Fireside Chats. Not as FDRs, but hey, it's something. Believe it or not, there really is no major housekeeping, really, at this point for this video. There is one thing that I can say. You see, YouTube has just announced that they're going to be making a, like you can officially sanction a show as a podcast on YouTube. And I want to ask all of you who are watching, does that actually make a difference? Like, I tried to test it out by going on, like, the YouTube, like, thing and officially, like, clicking a podcast and then turning my phone off to see if it would still play, and it didn't. But I'm thinking, like, will that work if I do it on, like, the YouTube Music app? And if so, is it also only for, like, YouTube Red subscribers? I still call it YouTube Red, even though it's YouTube Premium. Like, does it only work for Premium subscribers? Because I know that you can turn off the videos and listen to it when it's like YouTube, when you have YouTube Premium. At least at one point you could. I don't know if they still do that now. And that's why I genuinely want to hear, like, if this actually makes a difference for your viewing and listening experience, should I do it? Like, that's the only reason why I would actually want to do it. Like, if you all legitimately are like, oh, this would be good because I have the YouTube Music app, so if I turn it off, I can listen to it while I'm listening to the YouTube Music app. It's like, if that's how it would be, I wouldn't be mind doing that, because that could be an issue as to why podcasts aren't why my podcasts are not necessarily listened to, because you can't turn off your phone, or like you can't do certain things while listening to the podcast. Even though you technically can, you just have to leave your phone on. But again, you tell me, like, if the podcast on YouTube actually enhances your experience, let me know in the comments, because that would very much make me think about turning, like, the Fireside Chats into an official YouTube podcast, I guess. With that out of the way, let's get right into the news. The first thing is a little bit of an update. You see, as I'm recording this episode, the Nigerian presidential election results have not been released yet. You see, I foolishly thought that there would at very least be, like, some preliminary results. Like, not the final results. Like, I didn't necessarily know if we were gonna have the final results, but I was expecting maybe, like, something like, oh, as of this night, we have this candidate leading, but the final results have not been tallied, so we have to wait and see till then. But currently, the only news we're getting of the Nigerian election is that there are some worries about the Nigerian election based on how things have turned out. See, because here's what happened. We've been getting a lot of conflicting stories, but apparently the election has not really been held in a uniform way that guarantees safety of the election. For starters, the polls were supposed to start at one point and then end at one point. But there are a lot of states that both started and ended early, states that have started late and then ended early, and states that I think, as of the time I'm recording this, are still voting. Tallies have sort of been very much inconsistent, apparently. In fact, a lot of people who voted basically decided to spend the rest of the day standing there just to make sure that the votes would be tallied correctly. In fact, one instance that came up was that there was an election thing that the results, like the machine just broke because the power went out. So then one person ran to their home, got their own personal generator, and then ran back so that they could continue, like, counting the election as planned. Some people see it as signs that maybe the election might not go well for Obi. I say, still holding out, buddy. Speaking of people holding out, AMLO. So, Mexico has officially passed the electoral system overhaul. So, basically, here's what happened. Mexico's Senate passed a bill that completes the overhaul of the country's election regulator, a long-sought objective of President Andrés Manuel López Obrador, and the opposition denounces as an attempt to tamper with the next year's elections. The Senate late Wednesday approved the electoral bill known as Plan B in general and particular terms with 72 votes in favor, 50 against, according to the Legislative Chamber's Twitter. The bill modifies the laws on institutions and electoral procedures, political parties, and electoral challenges, respectively. AMLO, as the president is known, has faced backlash from his push to overhaul Mexico's election regulator, known as the INE, with a general election scheduled for July 2024 and a vote to pick governors in 2 key states in just 3 months. In November, thousands of protesters marched in Mexico City against the president's initiative, saying that it would weaken elections and calling it a power grab. And right on cue, the United States has basically jumped on in with Joaquin Castro basically wagging his fingers at AMLO and saying, oh, bad AMLO, don't do this. Now, I'm not necessarily the biggest fan of all of the election reforms that AMLO is pushing, but I'm hesitantly curious to see where it goes. But I think, because I think further on in that, it goes on to say that the conservatives plan to challenge it. And what I think is going to happen is that the election results might not, the way this election thing might not turn out, at the very least for this cycle. Maybe I could see it continuing to be passed up to the 2024 election, but maybe they will be like, this system will not go on until the 2024 elections. Since they might go on a technicality of since the elections are so close, there's no point in doing this system for this election, and we need to do this afterwards. We'll have to wait and see how things pan out. Speaking of, Barbara Lee has officially announced that she will be running for California's Senate seat, and I almost immediately endorsed her. And now I'm going to have to get into arguments with a bunch of people on Twitter who say that Barbara Lee should drop out in favor of Katie Porter, even though literally there is no reason to do that. These guys will do the exact same thing that they will accuse Democrats of doing. Basically, here's what's going on. A lot of Democrats have basically tried to anoint Adam Schiff as the de facto candidate, and have tried to push Katie Porter, Barbara Lee, and every other Democrat to not even consider running in the race. And then these guys will go, how dare the California Democratic Party do this? But then when Barbara Lee wants to run, all of a sudden, they're going to go, Barbara Lee, you should just drop out and endorse Katie Porter, because there's no chance of you ever winning, so there's no point in you even contending. And the progressives need to unite under the one progressive candidate, to which I say, there's only one progressive. Barbara Lee. She's the only progressive in the race. Katie Porter's not a progressive. It's funny, and I've seen some of these people saying Barbara Lee, you should drop out, and then all of a sudden they're also listening, oh, by the way, Elizabeth Warren's second best senator. It's no. These are the same people who are literally seething and hating on Elizabeth Warren, and now all of a sudden it's oh, now Warren's good again. It's what? These guys are so inconsistent. One day it's Elizabeth Warren's basically just the same as the neoliberal establishment. She's just a prettier face to it. And then the next, she's basically on the same level as Bernie. I've said it before and I've said it again. Katie Porter is absolute trash. In the same ways Elizabeth Warren is trash, Katie Porter is trash. The only difference was that Warren's sin was too bigger. Even though Warren's sin is literally the only reason why people hate Elizabeth Warren is that she didn't endorse Bernie in 2016 and then ran against him in 2020. Those are the reasons why they don't like Warren. And since these guys love to attach themselves to the hip to Bernie, they will defend him until the day they die. And as much as they want to dress up Elizabeth Warren's other sins, her actual legitimate criticisms that you can levy towards her, as much as they want to point to those and say, no, we don't like her because of these reasons, they'll immediately bend over backwards to love the person who is doing literally every single one of those other criticisms. Katie Porter, crappy on foreign policy, explicitly a capitalist, has made it clear that when push comes to shove, she'll join the Washington consensus and then screw over the right decision. And even though all these things are readily available, people just don't care. And it's either because they are in that same Washington consensus, or at this point, they just want a W. They just want a W. They want, someone they want to claim that Katie Porter is a progressive just because they can make the number bigger. When Again, I don't think she is, but a lot of them want Barbara Lee to drop out, not necessarily because they think that Katie Porter is a better candidate, but because they think that Barbara Lee is going to spoil the election for Katie Porter. And that does not make any sense because, guys, you are aware that California has a top 2 jungle primary, right? Like, they have a primary where every candidate runs on the same ballot, and then the top 2 vote getters, regardless of party, make it to the general election. Like, this is a thing that you're not learning about today, right? There is literally no way for Barbara Lee to spoil the election for Katie Porter. Like, just for the sake of, like, just whatever, let's go over every single the general election that happened, like, statewide for California ever since they instituted this law in around, like, early 2011. So the first one that happened was actually Dianne Feinstein's Senate seat, where it was her and a Republican. Now, the reason why it was her and a Republican and not her and another Democrat was because there was no other prominent Democrat that was going to challenge Dianne Feinstein. Next was in 2014 for the governor's race, where they had incumbent Governor Jerry Brown and a Republican. Again, the reason why it was him and a Republican was because no other Democrat stepped into the plate. The next one was in 2016, where it was an open seat. We had 2 Democrats step to the plate, Kamala Harris and Loretta Sanchez. Again, these were 2 prominent Democratic people in California that ran for an open seat. So naturally, 2 Democrats made it to the end. Now, the next one I'm going to say is the California gubernatorial race in 2018. It ended up with Gavin Newsom and John Cox. Now, this is also an open seat, but slightly different considering Gavin Newsom was the incumbent lieutenant governor. So while, of course, not the governor, he was still in the realm of, relevancy to being the governor. Next, we had 2018, Feinstein's last run, because many people were considering that Feinstein should retire and leave. Many people coalesced around a prominent Democrat in the state, Kevin De Leon, and ran against her. So, of course, it ended up being 2 Democrats. 2022, we had Alex Padilla and another Republican. That's because, again, he was the incumbent senator because he was appointed to replace Kamala Harris. So, no other Democrat came to the plate. And then for the California gubernatorial race, Gavin Newsom versus another Republican. Because he was the incumbent, no other Democrats stepped to the plate. Like, you see, when the seat is open, there's more than likely to be people who are more than, when it is an open seat, people will more than likely vote for 2 Democrats because Democrats are so prevalent. There's very rare exceptions, and we're at the point where no prominent Republican has even stepped into the race. No prominent Republican has even been mentioned for the race. I honestly do not understand this, this is even worse than the spoiler myth is, in, the normal general elections, because this is literally a round where it makes no freaking sense. And one of the people that said this is a person who has called foul about spoilers in the past, when, again, it makes no sense. This was the same person that was saying, oh, Ciro Gomez spoiled the election for Lula, even though it's this is literally a 2-round system. There is literally no way you can spoil an election in a 2-round system, especially if the candidate in question is winning. Currently, Barbara Lee isn't doing so hot, but I think she should be doing super hot in the race. Yeah, Barbara Lee speaks for me. I will take no questions and no debate over Katie Porter because I don't believe Katie Porter is a progressive. She is not worth your time. She's not worth your money. Don't support her. If it's a her v. Schiff general election, slightly different story, but I still probably won't publicly support her. Speaking of people I probably won't publicly support, Marianne Williamson has apparently fucked up her own campaign announcement. Now, Marianne Williamson has been not so subtly hinting at the fact that she is going to run for president in 2024. And then she ominously tweeted, like, I have a special announcement on March 4th. Be prepared, everybody. Wink, wink. Like, again, not so subtly hinting at the fact that she's going to be running for president in 2024. Yeah, well, in February 23rd, she confirmed in an interview that she's running for president in 2024. Again, she literally screwed up her own campaign announcement. Like, I mean, I hate to use this example, but, like, this is a similar thing that happened to Tulsi Gabbard. Tulsi was on an interview with Van Jones, and then Van Jones said, "Are you running for president in 2020? And she said, "Yes, I am, and I plan to make a formal announcement soon." And then the media basically went, "Wait, this is how you announce a presidential run? You just randomly drop it in the middle of an interview and then just leave?" And this is even worse, because I can't even find, like, they don't link, like she doesn't give, like, an interview and then have it be released. It's like an interview and then it's written in an article. And she said it in, like, the dumbest way. Like, listen to this. This is apparently what happened. They asked her if she was running for president, and then Williamson said, "We're on the phone, but if I were on FaceTime, you'd see me wink." It's like, you literally didn't have to say that at all. Like, remotely, you did not have to say that. Literally any competent candidate would have said, "I have a formal announcement on March 4th. Look out then," which would have hinted, of course, that you're running, but also very much made people pay attention to the actual formal announcement you plan to make. Like, she literally fucked up her presidential announcement. And then you legitimately think that this woman is going to run a viable campaign against Joe Biden. Like, this is what the left was planning for, like, the entirety of the 2022. Crystal and Kyle, literally, they had so much power that they could have used for literally any other purpose. Not like Lucas Coons needed any of that coverage that you could have so freely given him. The Vanguard, the Vanguard, they were the ones who were helping trying to stir Marianne Williamson to run for president. And it's like, yeah, they're also the same people who are dredging up freaking Ventura 2024. These are the people that really need to take down the political establishment. Kyle literally made a video explaining why you shouldn't back her. Like, literally showing, like, oh, here's her backpedaling on Medicare for all. It's like, that's literally, isn't that, like, the number one thing that we're supposed to be fighting for? And then it's like, oh, this candidate that we're all diehard supporting is just very openly backpedaling on it on this national stage. The woman who's allegedly not anti-vax but keeps going on anti-vax shows like Russell Brand, where she point blank said that vaccine mandates are Orwellian, and then invited someone on her radio show who claimed that antidepressants could potentially be linked to autism, saying the prescriptive, like, definition of clinical depression is artificial, and claiming that the process of getting clinical depression diagnosis is a scam. Like, I honestly do not get people who supported Marianne Williamson, actually supported Marianne Williamson. I literally thought every single person who backed Marianne Williamson online was joking. Like, it was a joke. It was a gag. That was the whole point. But then it's like, oh, no, wait, we're, like, actually serious and think that she's actually a good candidate. Like, and all of the reasons that people have given me are just complete BS. Like, oh, we need an outsider. All of the socialists are outsiders, guys. We're political outsiders. Marianne Williamson is a crackpot. We have literally plenty of those in Washington. And another one that I've seen is, like, people saying, like, oh, well, she can tap into, like, evangelicals and Christians. It's like, she's not even Christian. She's Jewish. And they immediately go, oh, well, I mean, okay, she can, like, do, like, general, like, relations. Like, wait, hold on. Which was it? Like, you explicitly said Christian. This whole time you were telling me to support her. You didn't even know basic facts about her? I guarantee you that if I actually, like, go on the Twitter and then start arguments with the freaking Marianne people, what they're going to say to me is they're going to say, oh, why are you trying to destroy the left? It's like, bitch, I've literally been trying to tell the left from day one, this is a stupid idea, don't do this. And now that you're actually moving forward with the idea, you think I'm just magically, like, stop? These are the same people who say, oh, we need to be, like, critical of our, like, politicians. But then you get critical of the one they're supporting at the time period, and all of a sudden you're like, you're an outcast. And here's the thing, I've said in the past, like, oh, I would support Marianne Williamson if she's literally the only candidate running. But here's the thing, I would never publicly endorse her. I would literally only support her in private. But even then, it's kind of wearing on me. It's literally like, there's literally no candidates on the ballot in 2024 for me, really, outside of the presidential election. And, like, my vote literally does not matter at all. It really does not matter that much, actually. Like, if it's Marianne v. Biden, Biden automatically wins. And then when the general election comes, the state's more than likely going red, and my one vote, no matter who it's for, is not going to make a difference. So there's even a little bit of factor of like, oh, maybe there's a potential scenario where I don't vote at all. Although it is likely that I would vote. But here's the thing. Like, as the media is reporting now, it seems that we might not even need Marianne Williamson at all, because apparently there's whispers in the Biden administration that Biden might not even run at all in the next election. Because apparently what's going on is that, like, everybody's saying, like Biden's basically made no announcement to his staff or any of his, like, allies about what his intentions are for the next election. So everybody's basically wondering, like, what do we do? Is he running or is he not? So we might not even need Marianne's, like, run at all, like, honestly. Alright, with that out of the way, let's move on to the main topic of this video. This has been one that's been a bit of a request for a while, and I guess this makes sense to do after, like, the last video that I made. You know, the very big, like, drama anti-left tube type thing, maybe counteracted with a little bit of positivity. So let's just get into it. So, who is Second Thought? Well, Second Thought, also known by a alias, I guess, JT Chapman, is an educational channel started in 2016. The original concept behind the channel was that there would be a sort of figure, a historical, scientific event, or whatever, that most people would kind of know, like Mother Teresa is the subject of his first video, something most people have a general understanding of, but then he would take that subject and then give it a second thought. He would do, like, little animations, do little drawings and whatever that would basically get people's attention, I guess. It's a common way to get people's attention on the internet, and most edutainment channels kind of do that, when they do little, like, animations, because it's, like, I guess, uniqueness. Late 2016, early 2017, he started framing his, like, all of his videos in the form of a question. What's the weirdest thing to fall out of a sky? Is prayer actually effective? What if NASA had the US military's budget? What does genetic engineering mean for humanity? Why haven't we cloned a woolly mammoth yet? How many nukes would it take to eradicate humanity? And I think that NASA video basically shifted how his channel was again, because he sort of started gravitating more towards science-based questions. Like, originally, it seemed that he did have, like, other elements in, like, whatever, but it seems that now it was mostly exclusively science-related. Things went on for a while. He was sort of like, yeah, this is pretty cool. He started getting a little bit popular, but at one point he just kind of got bored of the content, and he was like, I can use this platform for something more. While yes, educating people is a good thing, he was like, maybe I'm educating people in the wrong thing. And he tried spicing up things, maybe like changing some things every so often. Like, here's one. How big of a threat is North Korea? Game of Thrones in real life. What's the deal with cryptocurrency? First world problems. Why is there so much poverty in America? Do we really have free will? Like, you know, content that is in this realm, but still has, like, some veerings. Like, you know, maybe, like, veers a little bit off of, like, actual science and more into philosophy, etc., etc. And every so often, he would change the style format of how the thumbnails are and how the videos were, and, like, a little bit of the content again. What happens if you never stop working? What happens if North Korea becomes democratic? The unusual story of the only pig in Afghanistan. Should the government punish whistleblowers? The truth about 5G safety. And one that's interesting is how this man cheated death 600 times. If you can't guess, that is a video about Fidel Castro. American voting machines are much less safe than you think. Like you can see, he's dipping his toe in areas that are not necessarily like what he quote unquote should be doing. But then one day he decided to do something interesting. He decided to make a video called Capitalism and the American Pandemic Response. And that would be his first formal forte into political videos. And ever since then he decided, you know what, I'm just gonna continue doing this. If people follow me, oh well. If they don't, so be it. A risky move, but I think could still work, especially considering his channel's branding. Like, his channel's branding was literally second thought. Like, he's going to give topics a second thought. And coming out to the, extremely capitalist United States and then giving a new perspective on socialism, it literally is giving socialism a second thought. And as I said, his content has shifted into being more left-wing oriented. Emergency powers and creeping authoritarianism. Why American healthcare is worse than the developed world. America's stunted political spectrum. The resurgence of popular left media. How to astroturfing. How to spot a fake movement. What should we do about problematic statues? America's two-party corporate duopoly. It's some things where it's he's just explaining this thing that is prevalent, but then also why doesn't blank happen? There's one video, I don't remember which one it was, but I'm pretty sure it's just, it's the title is what it is. It's why didn't socialism take off in the United States? And he goes on to explain, all the reasons why socialism is not, more mainstream in United States politics. As I did it, I just noticed that the video was on the screen. How left is the American left? And why didn't socialism catch on here? Why your carbon footprint is a scam. Again, giving a second thought to something that we all understand. Everyone understands their carbon footprint and environmentalism and recycling and whatever. And I will say this is basically the kind of content that I would want to watch, and a bit surprising that I didn't see it until recently. Well, not recently, but somewhat recently. I will say that it is slightly harder to watch older videos of his, just because, I don't know, maybe it's just, he needed more time to get into the groove of this newer content. Then again, he could literally say the exact same thing to me. I tried to rewatch some of the earlier content in this political sphere of his, that I'm I just haven't watched it fully. And, I do try to watch a lot of his, videos as of recently. I will say I occasionally skip some videos, especially ones that are just, the answer is pretty obvious. Do socialists just want to take your stuff and we're the Nazi socialists? Or maybe if I'm depressed, I don't really want to watch something where it's the next election will be stolen. But then again, if you're watching political content on the internet, then, it's kind of on you to realize that it's not going to be entirely positive all the time. But I say this, his content is well put together, well researched. He puts sources in his description, since he's of the more brain level of here's a big piece of information that might not be readily available to everybody. In fact, I'll honestly say this, I think he's a better Gravel Institute than the actual Gravel Institute. Honestly, even though it's I don't even necessarily think that it would be his objective, I don't know, maybe. But, it seems like he would be better at, de-radicalizing people than you would think. The Gravel Institute was literally made to be, a left-wing alternative to PragerU, because PragerU was basically Facebook memes, regurgitate conservative talking points. Second thought would be a better alternative to that than the actual Gravel Institute, because the Gravel Institute, I guess it's just not really working so well. I guess this is the part where we get into the controversies, because the Wikitubia page that he has, there are some controversies there where it's accusations of him being a tanky, especially given quote unquote his associations. On his channel's feed, he has Luna Oi and Hakeem, Vosh hates them, so therefore, second thought, it must be evil, tanky, incarnate. Well, I guess that would depend on your definition of tanky. Like, I mean, if your definition of tanky is essentially just like everybody who is not like a social democrat or like a, I guess, right, democratic socialist. I don't know how to describe that, but like, I guess if your definition of tanky is basically anybody who is not in like the Washington consensus on foreign policy, so again, basically everybody who is to the right of social democracy, if that's your definition of tanky, then, I mean, I guess. But when I mean the word tanky, I mean like somebody who literally simps for and supports the like furthest reactionary type like whatevers of like socialist, of like quote unquote socialist thought. Like Stalin actually good, Assad good, Gaddafi good. There is no Uyghur genocide, and that would probably have to just be asked of second thought, I guess. Not really gonna speak for him, but one of his podcast hosts is literally Lenin. Okay, cool. And like, I mean, again, like that would be a case by case. You'd have to look into like what they say, what they do. I haven't seen much to like understand Hakeem, really. I think he had a debate with Vosh or something. I don't quite remember. I might have to look into that later if I ever do a video on Hakeem. But either way, this isn't about him, this is about Second Thought, but there really isn't that much to say. Like, Second Thought's videos are good. They're informative. I mean, I guess they're like slightly boring nowadays since he uses stock footage instead of animations, but, you know, it is what it is. I guess the content flows better with stock footage. It makes it look better. Maybe if he actually did think of the idea of, oh, well, I'll be the lefty version of PragerU, maybe he would have kept the animations. But, I mean, it's not really my decision here or there. Man, these positive episodes stink. They're always so short, but there really is not much else for me to say here, so Second Thoughts videos are good. Watch them if you want, but watch mine first because I have nothing, he has everything. Thanks for watching this video. Be sure to like, comment, share, subscribe, and click that bell to notify when a future video of mine comes out. And if you need more content from me, you can go to my website, follow me on Twitter, join my Discord, or consider supporting me on Patreon.